Smackdown starts off with Cody Rhodes. He ends up cutting a very short promo, but then Drew McIntyre ends up interrupting him during his promo. He ends up hugging Cody Rhodes, and then he ends up telling Cody that he's here to help Cody. He's not going to attack him, and that he ends up mentioning this new generation, this new era that WWE is in, and that Cody is the leader of this new era. And then he ends up mentioning Cody's, injury due to Kevin Owens attacking him, KO, holding the Wing Eagle Championship, and that he needs to watch out for himself and that he needs someone by his side, and he wants to be that person by his side helping Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes ends up responding back, basically saying that he doesn't believe anything Drew McIntyre is telling him. He doesn't trust Drew McIntyre. He can feel the tension between them, and that he just wants to skip to the part where they just start fighting each other. Drew ends up saying that he's not here to fight him. He's here to help. And then Drew McIntyre is like leaving the ring, right? He's leaving the ring. Cody Rhodes is like, staring at him while he's leaving. And then he says that, before he ends up leaving the ring, Drew McIntyre tells him to watch his back. Seconds later, Kevin Owens ends up attacking him, and then they end up brawling. Now, the way Drew McIntyre set this up was perfectly, and it kind of feels like it was more planned, if anything, because Kevin Owens and Drew McIntyre had like a little stare down. So I don't know if they're teasing that Drew McIntyre did that on purpose, but most likely he probably did. But I don't know if they're teasing a potential team up between KO and Drew McIntyre, because they have the same goal in mind. So I don't know if they're teasing that, but I did like the execution of this. This was a really good segment. I enjoyed this. This is clearly building up towards the Royal Rumble. I can't wait to see how that match plays out. But this was an overall good opening show and a very good SmackDown overall, but this was a really good opening segment. Afterwards, we ended up getting Shinsuke Nakamura versus Andrade. Shinsuke ends up picking up the victory. Afterwards, after the match, we end up getting LA Knight. He ends up attacking Shinsuke. He was getting the upper hand, but Shinsuke was easily able to escape. This is just propelling, telling the story of LA Knight trying to get his U.S. Championship back. And next week, there is a championship match between LA Knight and Shinsuke Nakamura. I think Shinsuke is probably going to win that match by some type of cheating or some sort. I just don't see where LA Knight wins it that quickly. They're telling the story of this is a whole new LA Knight. LA Knight got his confidence back. That's the story they're trying to tell here. I'm not going to say I'm really that interested in the story per se, but we'll see how this plays out. Afterwards, we end up getting Pretty Deli. We end up getting a segment with them. Pretty Deli and Legado, they was talking. Legado, of course, is upset because they end up putting the blame on the attack of the Street Profits on them. Legado tries to attack Pretty Deli, but Nick Aldis and security breaks it apart. Then I think DIY ends up coming in, talking to them, ends up mentioning how they want to keep their tag titles, and that they, that because later in the show they end up having a match against Motor City Machine Guns, and that they would like their help, basically. They would like their help to retain those tag titles, so that way they could end up facing DIY. So that way Pretty Deadly could get an opportunity to face DIY for the tag titles. But then we end up getting the tag match between Motor City and DIY. This happened later in the show, but I might as well cover it now. DIY, Motor City Machine Guns. This was a really good tag match. This was a really good match. But towards the end of the match, Pretty Deadly tries to help DIY. They end up interfering. DIY ends up taking advantage. But after when DIY took advantage, they end up going for the pin. You end up getting I think it was Alex Shelley who was getting pinned, I'm not mistaken, but he ends up kicking out. Then we end up getting Legado ends up coming out to attack Pretty Deadly, so they're brawling on the outside. Motor City Machine Guns ends up taking the advantage. They end up going for the pin, but then you end up getting Pretty Deadly and Legado in the ring brawling, and they end up landing on top of one of the members of Motor City Machine Guns. I can't remember who was pinning who, but they end up landing on top of Motor City Machine Guns as they was going for the pin, causing a disqualification, allowing DIY to retain the WWE Tag Team titles. This was really good. I really enjoyed this, especially with SmackDown being 3 hours now. This is giving more opportunity for everyone to shine. More tag teams can actually, flourish. I like this. And the story's interesting. Legado have something to do. Pretty Deli in the mix of DIY. I like what they're doing here. I actually like what they're doing here, putting all the tag teams together. I like this. This is really good. I enjoy what they did here. 3 hour SmackDowns, even though it's gonna be kind of a drag to watch because I prefer 2 hours. But I understand the purpose of a 3 hour show, and I don't mind it as long as the shows are as good as they were today. I have no issue with 3 hour shows. So overall, this was really good. I really enjoyed what they did here. Now we end up getting Michin versus Piper Niven. Not gonna really speak too much on this. This is just the setup. Eventually, Chelsea Green and Michin getting their eventual rematch. Michin taking care of Piper to get closer to Chelsea Green for the Women's United States Championship. I'm not gonna really speak on it. This was a decent match, but nothing really to really go over here. I'm interested to see what more they will really do. Hopefully, they get more segments where they're actually talking to actually build upon this rivalry. But nonetheless, this is just for Michin to get closer to Chelsea Green to try to dethrone her to become the new Women's United States Champion. Now we end up getting Paul Heyman. He ends up cutting a really good promo. He ends up mentioning tribal combat. He ends up mentioning Roman. He ends up mentioning him and Roman was the ones training Solo to become the next tribal chief in the future. But Solo ends up, he ends up mentioning after WrestleMania, Solo ended up, taking the Ula Fala, becoming the tribal chief when Roman wasn't ready to step down. He said that he was supposed to be one to take over being tribal chief when Roman stepped down, but Roman didn't want to step down yet. He ends up mentioning why Roman lost that Mania, mentioning that Roman lost due to his hatred of Seth Rollins and Cody taking advantage. I like that they bring that up. I do like that they bring up that he lost due to his hatred of Seth Rollins. I do like that he brought that up. Then he ends up mentioning that Solo didn't earn the Ula Fala. He took it. He took the Ula Fala. He doesn't deserve to be the tribal chief. And that he ends up saying that basically Roman will be the one to stand tall at on Raw and Netflix at Tribal Combat. Then he ends up mentioning, bringing in Tama Tonga, Jacob Fatu, and all of them. I love Paul Heyman constantly mentioning Tonga Loa and the Tonga brothers and Jacob Fatu, keep calling them animals. I just find it hilarious. But then we end up getting Solo. Solo comes out. He ends up basically doing the whole acknowledge me thing, Well, before that, actually, Paul Heyman had the microphone, and he is holding out his hand like Roman does for the microphone. Paul Heyman gives it to him. Solo basically ends up asking Paul Heyman to be the one to hold the Ula Fala during the match on January 6th. He ends up asking, can he hold the Ula Fala? And then he basically ends up saying that if Roman wins, he will acknowledge Roman as his tribal chief. But if Solo wins, he ends up saying that not only will Roman acknowledge him as the tribal chief, but Paul Heyman will officially be his wise man and that he officially owned Paul Heyman. This was really good. I enjoyed it. This was a really good segment. I love this. This was really great. I'm excited for January 6th. I'm excited on Raw on Netflix because that show is absolutely stacked. I'm excited to see how this plays out. Really am. Very curious to see, are they going to have Solo win or are they going to have Roman win? Because I can see either way. I can see Roman winning, but you could also see Solo winning by The Rock interfering. There's rumors of Drew McIntyre potentially interfering, which will be interesting. I don't want to see that, mainly because Drew McIntyre already said that he was going to have Roman oh my God, I'm mixing up my word. Drew McIntyre already said that he was going to have Solo take care of Roman. He already said that. So hopefully this is just a strictly one-on-one match. And then if it's going to be interference, it needs to be The Rock. If it ain't The Rock, please don't have interference. Now the Bloodline is going to interfere. New Bloodline, old Bloodline, they're going to interfere. But in terms of costing someone the match, if it ain't The Rock, don't do it. Do not do it. If it ain't The Rock, do not have no one actually cost this match. But nonetheless, this was a really good promo. I'm excited for that match. Now we end up getting Nia Jax versus Naomi for the women's championship. This was a really good match. This was also a really good match. Really good wrestling on tonight's show. This was a really good match. The crowd was very high for this match. I will say the only thing I would say is there was way too many kickouts from Nia Jax. Now, I do like it to a degree because it is, one, a championship match, so it should be kickouts. Number two, it is Nia Jax. She is someone that should be presented as a monster, someone that's hard to take down. So I understand why they did it. I just felt like it was a bit overboard because it was like 6 kickouts that she did. Like she kicked out like 6 times. So I do think they did it a bit too much because I feel like because Naomi barely even got pinned in this match. Naomi was the main one doing majority of the offense. That was kind of my thing. If it was more of a back and forth where Nia Jax was where Naomi was kicking out of moves, then it would be more justifiable. It was strictly just Naomi dominating majority of this match while Nia Jax had to keep kicking out. But towards the end of the match, we end up getting Candice LeRae. She interferes, but Bianca ends up taking her out. Then you end up getting Tiffany Stratton. She ends up doing a fake cash-in. She ended up doing a fake cash-in. She was pretending to cash in, but she ends up tossing the referee Then she ends up knocking out Naomi. This allowed Nia Jax to end up hitting the Annihilator to pick up the victory. But after this, though, we end up getting the three of them celebrating. Candice, Tiffany, Nia Jax all celebrating. Then you end up getting Tiffany telling Nia Jax to attack Bianca Belair. She ends up attacking Bianca Belair, but in the middle of it, because Nia Jax was on the top rope, Tiffany Stratton ends up attacking Nia Jax. Then she ends up taking out Candice Ray, throwing her on the ring post. Then she goes to the outside. Well, yeah, she goes to the outside. Then you get Bianca Belair. She ends up hitting the oh my god, how did I forget her finisher? It's been so long since I've seen Bianca Belair hit her finisher. I honestly forgot the name of her finisher. I can't believe I forgot. But she ends up hitting. Isn't it called? No, I'm thinking of LA Knight's move. But she ends up hitting her finisher. I don't know how I forgot Bianca Belair's finisher, but she ends up hitting her finisher. Then you end up getting Tiffany Stratton. She ends up cashing in her Money in the Bank briefcase because she ends up taking out Bianca Belair as well. Cashing in her Money in the Bank briefcase, and now she is your new WWE's Women's Champion. This was great. This was great. The way they executed this was perfect. I was extremely shocked how they did this because I thought it was just gonna be another fake cash in. I thought it was gonna be another fake cash in, but this was perfect. I know that if she didn't cash in, people would have been so upset if she didn't cash in tonight. But this is great. This is perfect. I love what they did here. I knew that she was going to cash in before Mania because I was like, there's no way they're going to hold this out to Mania. That's way too long. So the way they did this was perfect. Very excited to see how this plays out. Very curious to see who will be her opponents leading up to Mania. I still think it's going to be Charlotte Flair at Mania, but this was great. This was a great way. This was very good. I'm very excited to see how her title reign ends up. But yeah, this was great. This was amazing cash in, man. I love what they did here. This was excellent from Triple H. Then we get the main event. OG Bloodline versus New Bloodline. Not going to really speak too much on it. New Bloodline is a pick of the victory. Makes sense. Solo needs a victory to build up towards his match against Roman. Only makes sense. And I like the way they did it where they end up winning the match cleanly. Overall, this was a really good to great episode of SmackDown. If episodes like this keep happening, 3-hour Raws and 3-hour SmackDowns will be no problem. Ignore the noise in the background. But this was great. I will say this, we do gotta take this with a grain of salt because this is the Royal Rumble season, the road to WrestleMania. So of course the episodes will be better. So after April, like May, June, that's when we really need to really see how these Raws and SmackDowns are really gonna be when they're both 3 hours. But overall, this was a great show. You guys let me know your opinions below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. But yeah, that's it.